Today we talk about growing pains and synovial cyst in the spine. You don't need to be afraid. You can handle this. And here's how you do it.
The Ask Dr. Mom Show.
Welcome to the Ask Dr. Mom Show, episode 17. Today we are going to do our normal question and answer episode, and then beginning next week, we're actually going to be doing a 3-part series on infertility. So if you have family or friends that have been struggling with infertility and all the heartache that goes with it, let them know, tune in, and we'll try to help them get through this. So for today, what is our first question?
Rebecca asks, my son is having a lot of growing pains. Are there herbs you would recommend for him to take? He is 7 years old.
Oh, Rebecca, bless his heart. Usually this doesn't start until they get up around 10, 12, so he's starting early. Growing pains are normal, typically not this young, but as you probably already know, it's because the bone is growing faster than the muscles, and so they're getting stretched and tugged on. What we have typically done is we use the Replenish Bone and Tissue formula. You can give this to him orally, but what's going to help the most is I like to start with the oil, because the oil will penetrate deeper than the ointment does. And I just massage the legs or the arms, whatever it is that they're having a problem with, to get this comfrey and the other herbs down into the muscle to give it relief, but also to strengthen it and help it grow so that it catches up to the bone. And so we rub the Replenish Bone and Tissue oil in, and then a lot of times I'll put the ointment on over the top of that.
Oh, okay.
Because the oil penetrates deeper, but the ointment lasts longer.
Oh, I see.
And then, if you're going to wrap this, you probably don't want to add the cayenne because it can build up too much heat. But if it's at night and he's going to be going to bed, then usually I will take cayenne ointment and I will add that, kind of mix it in with that Replenish Bone and Tissue ointment, because that brings a lot of circulation and blood to the area, which flushes out inflammation and brings a lot of oxygen. But this will help to give a lot of relief, and it helps to speed up the process so they're not suffering as long with it. Along with that, the best things that you can do is make sure that he's getting a lot of fresh fruits, vegetables, and greens in his diet so that he's getting the nutrients that he needs. And make sure that he's getting lots of physical exercise. If he sits in front of a television or a computer or a gaming station all day long, then those muscles are not getting worked, they're not getting used as much as they should, and he will suffer a lot more than he will if he gets out and uses them and exercises.
I have a question. Because I know the oil and the ointment have the herbs in there to help the body do what it needs to do. Have you ever used any mineral or calcium or magnesium supplements, or is all of that kind of in the ointment?
Well, when they're suffering, what they need topically is all in the oil and the ointments. But what I have started using a lot more is trace minerals.
Yeah.
Because so many children with their diets today are not getting enough of the trace minerals that they need. And so a lot of times I will add a trace mineral supplement into their diet.
Yeah, that's what I found. Besides, putting on the ointment with my kids.
Right.
Putting on the ointment to help with the immediate pain. It's like, oh, you're needing more minerals and calcium and magnesium. Like you're not getting enough, or this wouldn't
Exactly.
be so painful. And so then I, get on the green drink or
And that's a great
Yeah.
way to do it, because if you add in the green drink, then they're getting all of those minerals
yeah.
because they're in the herbs and plants that are in the green drink. So that's a wonderful way to do it. In fact, one of my oldest daughter likes to take the green drink and encapsulate it.
Oh, really?
And then if the children are having growing pains, or if they're having trouble focusing on schoolwork, or she tells me that if she's going through PMS or mood swings or any of that
Right.
type of thing, she said, boy, we all know, go grab 5 of those capsules and take them several times throughout the day. And she said there's almost immediate results. So that's another way you can do it. If you don't want to stop and make the drink, you can
Right,
encapsulate them, and then they're easy to take.
That's cool.
All right, what do we have for our next question?
The next question comes from, I hope I'm saying this right, Ladine. She says, I was diagnosed 3 weeks ago. The MRI showed a cyst on my spine called a synovial cyst. I have a lot of pain in my lower back and right leg from inflammation. Is there anything you can recommend for inflammation? Thank you in advance. Brightest blessings to you.
Ladine, thank you for sending this question in. However, I'm approaching this a little bit blind because I have no idea how old you are. A synovial cyst like this in the spine typically is caused from degeneration, meaning that you've got bone on bone, which could mean that you have a degenerated disc, or maybe it was herniated, but typically this is a degenerative problem and usually shows up in people over 65. So if you are younger than that, then there's probably more that we would add into the program. But typically when I come up against something like this, first you need to understand that a synovial cyst is in essence just a fluid-filled sac. And the reason this tends to happen with degeneration is because normally, we have cartilage and we have the disc and we have fluid. These are all things that are between the vertebrae to help protect the nerves that run down through the vertebrae. When we have degeneration going on, then we lose that protection that we have in there, and the nerves get pinched and rubbed, and they tend to get inflamed. And so to help the condition, the body starts building up more fluid there, and typically that's when you'll form a cyst, which then actually starts causing more pressure on the nerves, and as you already know, is extremely painful. So for immediate relief, I would probably turn to some type of an anti-inflammatory essential oil, like helichrysum. Lavender has anti-inflammatory properties. Myrrh, chamomile, these are all going to help with inflammation. And so I would probably start with an essential oil, and you could just put that into olive oil, or if you have fractionated coconut oil, just so that you have some kind of medium. I would put that into your oil and then rub it directly onto the spine where the cyst is for immediate relief. But then what I did with my mother came to live with me in her mid-70s. Because of her rheumatoid arthritis, they had her on prednisone for a lot of years.
Wow.
And prednisone, which is a steroid, has a lot of side effects.
Yeah.
Typically, when someone has rheumatoid arthritis and they're getting up in years, when they prescribe prednisone, they figure that you're going to die before the side effects catch up to you.
Oh, wow.
But in my mother's case, that didn't happen. She was on it for a long time. The side effects caught up to her. And one of the side effects is severe osteoporosis.
Oh, wow.
So in my mother's case, what happened was her vertebrae actually could no longer support her weight and they began to collapse.
Oh, wow.
Which is really bone on bone.
Yeah.
And so she was in a lot of pain and ended up, her bones were so fragile that by the time I figured out what was going on, she also had a broken rib simply because she leaned over the arm of her chair to pick up a magazine.
Oh, wow.
And so she was in so much pain, she ended up sitting in this chair. Pneumonia set in. And so by the time I found her, she was in horrible shape. I took her to an emergency room where they did the x-rays and everything. And this is where they saw the collapsed vertebrae, the broken rib, everything. And so basically they sent her home to die. They told me to make her comfortable.
That there's nothing they could do.
That there's really nothing they could do. Well, when we got her home, one of the first things we did was clean up her diet. And so we had her on a lot of fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, lots of greens, water as opposed to the soda that she was used to drinking all the time.
Goodness.
And so we cleaned up her diet, and then twice a day, morning and evening, we would put her in a comfrey bath. And the way that we did this was we would take cut comfrey and maybe 2 or 3 handfuls of it on a cotton diaper or dish towel. 2 or 3 handfuls of the comfrey. Then take the cloth, fold it up around it, and rubber band the top of it. So when you do that, you've got this big cloth ball of herbs.
Right.
I had a jetted tub, which works beautifully to steep the tea.
Right. Yeah, mix it all up.
Right. But even if you have just a regular tub, when you start running the water into the tub, if you'll take this ball of herbs and hold it in the running water and squeeze it as the water's running through it, then the tea seeps into your water, and then when your tub's full, you float the bag in it. If you have a jetted tub, then once you put the bag into the water, you can actually turn the jets on, and that continues to really steep a strong tea. Well, twice a day, we would put my mother down into this hot tub of comfrey water and soak her for at least 15 to 20 minutes. A half hour is even better. So twice a day she was soaking, and then I was probably giving her, this has been many years ago, I would say I was probably giving her 5 capsules of the Replenish Bone and Tissue formula 4 times a day. So morning, noon, night, and bedtime.
Yeah.
And then when she was not soaking in the tub, we would rub the Replenish Bone and Tissue oil or ointment directly into the spine, along with cayenne ointment.
To stimulate the healing
Right.
and the blood flow.
It actually does several things. The cayenne intensifies the medicinal properties of the Replenished Bone and Tissue. So it actually makes the herb stronger, and it brings a lot of circulation to the area. So you've got the added oxygen and blood flow coming into the area. So, Ladine, this whole long explanation actually gets down to this. Typically, these cysts are caused from degeneration.
Yeah.
So if this were happening to me or to one of my loved ones, my focus would be on really rebuilding and strengthening the spine. And if you are over 65 and you're still on your feet, it's never, well, even if you're not on your feet, my mother wasn't.
Yeah.
As long as you have help, it is never too late to do this. Because my mother, I think, was around 76. after working with her for a month, my mother was up out of that deathbed on her feet.
Wow.
And went on to live a very, very active life for another decade.
Wow.
So, I mean, she traveled. She worked at the genealogy library, which was one of her favorite pastimes.
Did she keep the changes to her diet and all that stuff after?
No.
Oh. But it's still 10 years.
That's right.
That's
That's
impressive.
She did a lot better and eventually kind of slid back into the old habits, and which meant that eventually her health went downhill again. But for the next 10 years, instead of coming home to die, she was given another decade of a very active, happy life. And so the bottom line, Ladine, is if this were me, I would focus on regenerating and rebuilding and strengthening the spine. And as far as immediate relief, I would turn to some of the anti-inflammatory essential oils.
Yeah.
And
have you ever used turmeric as an anti-inflammatory?
I have.
Yeah.
I have. So that would be another good one.
Yeah, and I talked to various people. I was in my late 20s after my third child. And I was having severe back issues, and I had back issues my whole life. You know, at 7, I was diagnosed with mild scoliosis. I'd been in a variety of different accidents throughout my life. And so after my third child, and it had really started to take a toll, and I was at the point where it was really affecting my ability to get out of bed and take care of my kids.
Yeah.
Because I just always lived with the pain for 20 years.
Pain is extremely debilitating.
Yeah. And I'd always lived with it, but it had gotten so bad that I couldn't live with it anymore. And so I did all the things that you were talking about with the replenished bone and tissue. I got decompression therapies from a chiropractor. I learned decompression exercises. So I was decompressing my back, and then I was giving my body what it needed basically to regenerate.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then to help with the inflammation, I was taking probably like 10 turmeric capsules a day. So I'd take 5 in the morning and 5 in the evening, because and the chiropractor, when he did the x-rays, was like, "This is exciting. You have the back of a 70-year-old. And I'm like, I'm in my 20s and you're really excited about this. So it was bad. It was bad. But as I talked to different people, you know, that were in a lot of pain, they're like, "Oh, well, I take 1 or 2 turmeric." And this is something I love about that you've always said, and it's in your books, that you need to be as aggressive with your ailment as your ailment is.
You have to be as aggressive as it is, or it wins.
Or it wins. And so I had to be aggressive, and so I did everything. I did the diet, I did the oils and the herbs and the exercises, and you know, I had 2 more kids, and my back's better than it's ever been.
Oh yeah, I started to say, now you're doing great.
Yeah. So
we need to remember, there are no incurable diseases. There are only incurable people, and that's because they won't do what they need to do to fix the problem. We are out of time for today. Thank you for joining us. This has been the Ask Dr. Mom Show. I'm Sandra Ellis with Alicia Decker.